Since Jesus was ultimately named after Joshua, we know to look at the life and person of Joshua for more insight and details about God's plan for the Messiah. It is Joshua who models for us the idea of the Messiah as the warrior king. When Joshua became the leader of Israel, the kingdom of Israel was on the outside of the promised land looking in. His first task as leader was to bring the Israelites from life in the barren wilderness to life in a fertile land. His next task was to lead the Israelites into battle against the people who had settled in the land and to completely drive them out. His third task was to divide the land for each of the 12 tribes. In the end, Joshua failed to fully complete his assignment. First, not all of Israel crossed the Jordan into the promised land. Some of the Israelites remained settled on the wilderness side of the river. Second, not all of the enemies were driven out. On several occasions, treaties were made with enemies. The Israelites intermarried with the inhabitants. The Israelites compromised on driving out all who would later lead them away from their worship of God and introduce them to idol worship. And finally, not all of the land that Abraham claimed was ever settled. The Israelites settled in just a small part of it. Ultimately, these failures of Joshua spell out for us what the promised warrior Messiah will do for us. He will bring us into the promised land, which is a metaphor for eternal life. He will not leave us in the wilderness, which is death. He will conquer our enemy of sin, and we will not have to live with sin. And he will give us a full inheritance, all that we have been promised. Though we have received in part, on that day, we will come into the fullness of the kingdom of heaven. This has been A Minute at the Manger.